trigger warning, I'm going to offend a lot of Americans. So if you don't like being offended, you guys across the pond, then yeah, look somewhere else for your entertainment. I am mightily offended by Biden's speech supposedly welcoming the new British Prime Minister. And before I get on with that, I'll tell you I'm Granniopteryx. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds, and also on Twitter, Gab and Parler, where I am at Granniopteryx. I let you know when I've uploaded a new video on one of those platforms. If you agree with what I say, then I would ask you to like, share and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, just check your subscription if you are subscribed, because YouTube drops subscriptions with no notice or warning. You can help me financially as well. Buy me a coffee or any of the other platforms listed below. Right, Biden. Well, no, before I start with Biden, I want to point out I don't even like Sunak. I don't like the way he behaves. I don't like his sly conniving to get Johnson out the way. I don't like the way the party around him got together to bully Liz Truss out of office as well as Johnson, because they wanted Sunak. And I just don't like that at all. However, that's not the point. He is the Prime Minister now. And Joe Biden couldn't even get his name right. All right, Biden is mentally impaired, but because he's impaired, there are no filters there. And we catch a glimpse into his soul. Let's look at this.
And whether it's the United Kingdom or just today, we've got news that Rashid Sunak is now the Prime Minister.
Now, he calls him Rashid Sunak, which is a Muslim name, because it's obvious he thinks he's a brown person, he's got to be a Muslim. And that's just for starters. The sort of assumptions he makes, the sort of racism he has in his head. And he says he's now the Prime Minister, and that smile, that evil, sardonic, conspiratorial, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, golf club, drinking room, conspiratorial smile. Britain has a brown Prime Minister. That's all he can see. Well, that's not what I was looking at when I didn't like him. And that's not what his colleagues saw when they did like him. They thought he was the best for them or whatever. Why aren't brown and black Americans up in arms about that comment? A British citizen who happens to be brown is our Prime Minister, and he thinks that's hilarious. Now, what does that say to Americans? Moving on.
As my brother would say, go figure.
As my brother would say, go figure. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird that a country would elect a Prime Minister who's of, well, Indian extraction, a Hindu. He is actually from East Africa. I think he's one of the Hindus that the British rescued when Idi Amin chucked them out of East Africa many years ago. I mean, not him personally, his parents, obviously. But look how Biden puts it, as my brother would say, go figure. No, so it's not him. It's not him. It's his brother. I hope his brother was watching. Actually, he's got two, hasn't he? Which brother is he talking about? James, the guy who was trading with Hunter Biden and China? James, who was paid a fortune for redecorating the Oval Office, so I've heard. Or is he talking about Frank, the one who put an advert for his law firm out on Inauguration Day? Or maybe he wasn't talking about his brother at all, but shifting the blame for his own racism. Okay, there's more.
And the Conservative Party.
Listen to that audience laugh. They're laughing at the UK having a brown Prime Minister. How terribly, terribly déclassé. And look at Biden enjoying the joke. And then he says, and the Conservative Party. And that's where I got really, really angry. In 1852, it was Britain that elected a Jewish Prime Minister, Benjamin Disraeli. And let me take a little digression here. In 1772, there was a famous court case called Somerset versus Stuart. Somerset was a slave. He'd been brought over to Britain as a slave, and then I don't know what the circumstances were, but Stuart, his boss, was trying to ship him back to sell him. And he took his boss to court. And when it did come to court, a British lord and a Chief Justice of the Court of King's Bench declared slavery so odious that it could not exist as common law in this country. And he set the conditions which would consequently result in the freedom of the 15,000 slaves living in England at the time. This had a knock-on effect, because when this ruling came about, it meant that people that American colonists couldn't own slaves either, because they were subject to British law. And that caused a lot of disquiet. So much disquiet that it was one of the contributory factors to the American War of Independence. And the way that the northern states got the cooperation of the southern states in this was when John Adams in 1774 made a speech to the First Continental Congress, in which he promised the southern states that the northern states would not oppose the continuation of slavery. 1772, Somerset versus Stuart. 1774, John Adams' speech to the Continental Congress. 1776, War of Independence. I just want to remind you of that. And as I said, that was set in place by the despised aristocracy of Britain. Let's get back to the Conservative Party. In 1975, 10 years before Walter Mondale lost his presidential attempt because he chose a female Veep. That was a woman called Ferrari, wasn't it? The Conservatives over here, 10 years earlier, had chosen a woman, Margaret Thatcher, in 1975, who became head of the party, and she was Prime Minister 4 years later. Don't give me that surprised look about the Conservatives, Joe, with all your Democrat reporters cackling away around you like loons.
Prime Minister, I think tomorrow when he goes to see the King. Pretty astounding. A groundbreaking milestone, and it matters.
Pretty astounding. Not at all. We have a long and noble history of choosing people, whatever their sex or colour, because they're competent or seen as competent. And you have insulted every Brit on the planet. Oh, hang on a minute. I want to remind you of something else just while my mind is on that. During the Second World War, there were a lot of American soldiers in Britain. Some of them were black. The American army insisted that the black soldiers be segregated from the white ones in the pubs. The British publicans told them to sod off. You have insulted every Brit on the planet, Joe Biden, and your reporters cackling around you, and to boot a good slice of your own American citizens as well. You are a total disgrace. Right. Till next time.